Okay, let's get started. So, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Rafi Shulman, and I'm the co-founder of Olim Advisors. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight, especially in these times. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on, and really thought long and hard about whether or not we wanted to host this webinar during this time of war. But I think everyone here in the panel agrees that it's very important for us to keep on doing what we're doing. First of all, because we want to share information with you. We want to encourage you. We want to inspire you to make Aliyah, to buy a home, to live your life in Israel. And also, it's important to just show the world that life goes on, that we're resilient, and that we keep a routine, and that we are going to keep on doing what we're doing. If there is a siren during the next couple of hours, the presenters will let me know, and we'll have to kind of go with the flow. We'll figure out how things how to handle things. I'm going to be here. I'm in a protected area, so I'm going to stick around, and we want to keep the presentation going. So if you're in Israel and you're watching the presentation and you need to leave, please come back. We're going to keep the presentation going. Of course, we're going to record it as well, and we'll send out the recording to everyone. So let me just take a moment and introduce the panel of people that have joined us. We'll start off with Johnny Gross from Mizrahi Tfachot Bank. Hi, Johnny. Thanks for joining us. Julia Rafalski from Vahim, which is a job search organization here in Israel. Then we have Stephen Edinger from Mas America, which is the tax advisory firm.
Hello,
Aaron
everybody.
Froelich, who from Green Peaks Advisors, the financial advisor. And also we're gonna have Eitan Gross join us from TCS Telecommunications. He's going to join us a little bit later on in the presentation. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us tonight. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say and to learning from your advice. Before we get started, just a few things. We have about 150 people from around the world who have registered for this event, and it's an honor for us to be here. It's a pleasure. It's inspiring to see that in spite of what's going on in Israel and around the world, people still are coming together. They want to learn about Israel. They want to plan their Aliyah. They want to plan their home buying process, and we want to try and help you and guide you along the way. A few things to keep in mind. First of all, as I mentioned, we are recording it, so we'll send out an email with the recording within the next day or two. Please feel free to share it with anybody who wasn't able to attend tonight. We know there are a lot of people that weren't able to attend, and so if you have any friends, co-workers, contacts, feel free to forward on the email with the registration. The other thing is that we are going to be doing a Q&A session at the end. So go ahead throughout the presentation, type your questions into the Q&A box, and then at the end, we will get to as many questions as possible. Keep in mind, though, that we can't get to everybody's situation. We don't have enough time, and it's not the right place to get into everyone's details to find out what your concerns and challenges and goals are. So what we do encourage you to do is to reach out to us after the webinar. Let's schedule a one-on-one call. Let's really understand what you're trying to accomplish. Let's understand what your goals are, whether it's to make Aliyah, to buy a home, to open up a bank account, to get tax advice, and so on and so forth. We're here to help you, and I will include a slide with everyone's contact information. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll also try to reach out to you in the upcoming weeks. Feel free to come to us. Let us know that you'd like to schedule a call, and we will happily do it at your convenience. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to give you just a quick background on who we are here at Olim Advisors and why we host these webinars. So if we go back about 10 years, back to 2016, we recognize that making Aliyah is a challenging process, right? That's a different culture, it's a different way of doing things. And unfortunately, a lot of people were just giving up and saying, you know what, maybe it's just not for me, or maybe I'll do it when I retire, or maybe I'll do it when the kids are out of the house. We wanted to do something about that. We wanted to help people, and so we put together and launched a very personalized service where each one of our clients, whether it's an individual, a couple, or a family, has their own advisor who guides them through the entire process. And it could be from the very early stages of simply thinking about making Aliyah to planning Aliyah to dealing with Israel and the bureaucracy. So when you come here, we'll help you, we'll make appointments for you, your advisor will go with you. So I'm sure you've heard about some of the horror stories about dealing with bureaucracy. We're here to help you and then just provide you with ongoing support for 6 to 12 months after. So just keep in mind that you have somebody that you can turn to with any questions, any guidance that you need to really guide you through the entire Aliyah process. About 3 years ago, we also expanded to help people who want to buy homes in Israel. And it could be somebody who's living in Israel already. Maybe it's somebody outside who's looking to buy a home for investment, or maybe they're looking to buy a vacation home, or maybe they're looking to make Aliyah down the road. And what we recognize is people who are looking to buy also need guidance. The market in Israel operates and functions very differently from other real estate markets. And so anybody that signs up for our real estate service will get an advisor who will guide them through the entire process from finding the right communities and finding the right projects and development, and also introducing them to our network of professionals. And that's very important because what we've done at Olim Advisors is that we've assembled a team of professionals like the individuals that are here tonight, as well as other realtors and real estate lawyers. And our goal is to help you through this entire process. So whether you're looking to make Aliyah or if you're looking to buy a home, just know that you don't have to go through this alone. Know that we're here to save you time, to save you energy, to save you stress, and in some cases also save you a lot of money. So feel free to reach out and let us know, and we'll be happy to help you. Okay. So we're going to start with the first topic for the webinar, which is really Aliyah planning and planning your Aliyah and how to ensure that it's a successful Aliyah, because that's very important, right? We tell people the easy part is making Aliyah. The hard part is the klita or the adjustment or the acclimation. And so there's a number of things that you can do to increase the likelihood of a successful Aliyah. So the first thing really are what we call the three P's: the planning, preparation, and perspective. And what we mean by that is the first thing is planning, right? A lot of the people we talk to aren't ready yet to make Aliyah. Maybe they want to make Aliyah in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, and that's perfectly fine. While other people are looking to make Aliyah maybe this summer, a big part of it is to plan this journey, to figure out when you want to move. What's the ideal time to make Aliyah? Where you want to move to, right? For people who are making Aliyah, this is an amazing opportunity to start a new chapter in your life, right? Whether it's you've always wanted to live by the beach, maybe you want to live in the center of town, maybe you've had a dream of living in Jerusalem. This is a great opportunity for you to live that exciting chapter of your life, but you really need to make sure that you want to plan it right. If you're looking for a job, you want to do the networking, you want to plan it beforehand. You don't want to just show up in Israel and say, I'm here, let's figure it out. You want to spend weeks and months and sometimes even years planning your Aliyah journey. The next thing is preparation. And what we mean by that is actually, in essence, rolling up your sleeves, right? And doing the research, right? You want to make sure that you spend a lot of time. Just to give you an idea, we spend somewhere between 60 to 80 hours per family, per individual, preparing and planning their Aliyah. You want to make sure that you look at communities, right? There's a lot of communities out there. You want to look at the different communities and really try and understand what's suitable for you and what you're looking for. Is it religious? Is it Anglo? Is it a mix? Is it secular? Do you want to live up north by the center? There's a lot of options. And so doing the preparation when it comes to communities is important. And if you're coming with kids, you want to also make sure that you're doing the preparation and you're researching and you're looking at different schools. Again, there are a lot of different options, a lot of good options, and you want to make sure that you're preparing for your move here, right? And the same thing applies, as I mentioned, for jobs, healthcare, and other topics that are of interest to you. You want to make sure that you're preparing. And the last thing is having a positive perspective, right? Anybody here that's made Aliyah knows that it's challenging. We're the first ones to tell you it's not going to be easy. It's not a walk in the park. Having said that, a big impact on your experience, and if you're coming with kids, your kids' experience is your attitude, is your perspective, recognizing that it's going to be challenging. But you know what? If you focus on the positive, you focus on the good things, and you take each day at a time, it will get easier day by day, week by week, by month. Things will get easier. And this positive perspective, the patience, the understanding will help you get through those difficult days. The next thing is the importance of a pilot ship. So we talked about communities, and what we encourage people to do is to come to Israel for a week to 2 weeks on a pilot trip. A pilot trip simply is a trip to Israel with the purpose of seeing things with your own eyes, looking at the communities, getting a sense of what each community is like, sitting on a bench and getting a sense of the vibe of the community and the neighborhoods. If you have kids, going to the schools, meeting the principals, meeting the teachers, meeting the Olim coordinators, and meeting residents who live in the communities to really get a good sense of what the communities are like, because what you will find is picking the community is probably the most important factor in your successful Aliyah. And so you want to spend the time to really get to know the communities, and the best way to do that is to come to Israel and see things with your own eyes. The next thing is having a budget in mind. And why am I talking about it from a financial point of view? Because the reality is that things cost differently. The cost in Israel is different. Whether you're talking about real estate, buying a car, going to the supermarket, there's a cost here, cost of living, right? There's a one-time cost of making Aliyah, and then there's ongoing costs. And so you want to have you want to have an idea of what things cost in Israel, and you want to make sure that you have a budget in mind, whether it's generating income on the income side and controlling your expenses, because the last thing you want to do is come to Israel and feel stressed because you can't afford to live here. So Israel can be affordable. It's not as expensive as people make it to be, but you do have to know what things cost so that you can plan accordingly. The next thing, and we talked about that there's a lot of people here who have joined who are thinking about making Aliyah with kids. And if we go back maybe 10 years ago when we started Olim Advisors, we would tell people if you're coming with children who are older than 10 years old, maybe you shouldn't come, or at least think through it because it was challenging. Now, there's so many options, there's so many schools, there's so many programs, there's so much support, socially, academically, emotionally, psychologically. There's a lot more support, a lot more options. And we're seeing people coming with older kids, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. And so the point here is that if you do have older children, don't don't have this prevent you from making Aliyah. Don't let this be a stumbling block. Know that there are choices out there, there are options, and we can definitely help you with that. And the last thing is take advantage of the resources. There's a lot of resources. There's organizations like Olim Advisors, there's Facebook groups, there's WhatsApp groups, there's free information online. Take advantage of the resources because it will make a tremendous impact on your Aliyah process, the planning part, and then when you get here as well. Okay, now we're going to switch and we're going to hand it over to Johnny Gross from Mizrahi Bank.
Hi, hi, good evening, everyone. I first like to thank Olim Advisors for offering this webinar. I can remember when I made Aliyah 35 years ago, there wasn't this option there. It wasn't something that was available for everyone, and it made it a hard process. And now, Baruch Hashem, with Olim Advisors and other organizations who've made the whole process so much easier, and it means that the process you can really make your Aliyah plans, decide to come to Israel. And for those of us who are living here at the moment, we really feel, at least I can say for my own purpose, we really feel that we're having a seat to the Gula of Am Yisrael at the moment. We're having unbelievable times. We're seeing unbelievable Nissim at the moment. And please God, we look forward to welcoming those of you who are already here and obviously those of you who are still not here yet. Well, I would like to obviously talk about the subject of banking, a little bit about background. As I said, I came on Aliyah 35 years ago. I still consider myself a little bit of an Oleh Hadash, even though I've been here for this long, because I live in an Anglo community, and it's definitely it's
Johnny, your audio
Aliyah
is just
these days.
buffering.
Can
Can you speak again? Maybe it's fixed itself.
you hear me now? Is it still buffering?
It seems to be okay now. Keep talking.
Okay, tell me if I have a problem. Tell me, and maybe I'll
You're
find a
good. And
different
now you're
place.
good.
Um, I'm okay.
Yes,
Am I good,
you're
Rafi?
good.
Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
so I represent the Mizrahi Tfachot Bank. Mizrahi Tfachot Bank is the third largest bank in Israel. We are the largest mortgage bank in Israel, and we'll relate that slightly in this discussion. Um, in so much whilst we have in the mortgage market 40% of the general market, when it comes to Olim Chadashim and foreign residents, we have 70% of the market. So we very much consider ourselves a bank that is the listing bank when it comes to Olim and foreign residents. We have um, we have many branches that deal specifically with Olim and foreign residents. We have about the country, we have approximately almost 30 branches all over the country. And these are ranging, we have certain branches which are international private banking branches, which offer very much a private banking service to the clients. And we also have, besides that, another 24 branches all over the country, which offers normal day-to-day banking. Now, opening accounts in Israel is when does one open an account in Israel? I mean, this is a question I'm often asked. I'm assuming and I'm being told that on this webinar, there are people who have made, some of you made Aliyah, some are pre-Aliyah. It depends. It certainly depends. If you're planning to if you're planning to buy a property, then you certainly want to have an account opening even before you make Aliyah. But if you are planning Aliyah in the next couple of months, it probably would make sense to wait until you have actually got your Tudat Zohut and your Tudat Oleh, and then contact me, and I'll be happy to set up for any of the people on this webinar, happy to set up accounts for them in different branches. Obviously, the branch which fits their needs, and with that which is closest to geographically to where they're planning to be. Opening accounts is again, it's once you come with your let's assuming you're an Oleh Hadash and you're coming with your Tudat Zohut and your Tudat Oleh, and you will also come normally with your national insurance, your tax number from the country that you're coming from, and then the bank will open your accounts. Now, in Israel, or at least in Mizrahi, I can certainly vouch for, the accounts you open are multi-purpose, multi-currency accounts. What does that mean? That means that the same account can look after your current needs, your investment needs, your mortgage needs, your credit card needs. It's one account. It also deals with all different currencies. You can, in the same account, you can have a shekel account, you can have a sterling account, you have a dollar account, you can have a Canadian dollar account, whatever the currency you can have within one account. You do not need to open up separate accounts for separate currencies. Now, something else is important to recognize, that monies which are bought, and maybe one of my colleagues will speak about that also, monies which are bought in from abroad, which are from outside sources, once you make Aliyah, if you bring them to Israel and you invest them in foreign investments, whether it's on a foreign deposit or a foreign investment of foreign stocks and shares, you will receive your 10 years, and in case of deposits, 20 years tax holiday. So please don't let people tell you that you can't bring your money to Israel. And we have seen, by the way, that lots of people have benefited from the fact that they have the money aboard, they have the money on board here in Israel, because they are able to deal with this money. And anyone who, for instance, anyone who has is coming from America and has seen how the shekel has strengthened over the last year, we've seen a strength of almost 20%. And therefore, it's very important to recognize that you need to think about your financial needs when you come to Israel. You have to think in shekels. One of the biggest mistakes that people often make when they make Aliyah is they think in the currency that they come from. They have to, and then obviously and this year has been a case in point for that. Anyone who's thought only in dollars has realized that the dollar has basically devalued by 15 to 20% this year. The different services offered by the bank can be every single service possible: current accounts, mortgage, loans, credit cards, transfer, exchange of foreign currency to shekels, buying stocks and shares. Everything can be done in this one account and can be done in the bank. We spoke about mortgages. Now, I'm going to just relate to mortgages. My time is very limited, and therefore I'll just relate to it in a very few words. A mortgage, basically, the important thing is to recognize that if you are a foreign resident and you haven't made Aliyah yet, and you're looking to buy a property and you want to take a mortgage, the loan to value you can get at the moment from any bank in Israel is up to 50% of the value of the property that you are looking to invest in. However, if you are an Oleh Hadash or you have a Taudat Zohut, then you cannot get up to 75% of the loan to value. Now, there are many different types of maslulim, different types of ways of taking the loan. You can take it as a variable rates. You can take it as a fixed rate. You can take it to link to the different currencies. Again, it's a massive topic. I'm happy to do a direct answer any questions, specific questions on this afterwards and later on as well. Now, one of the biggest questions people ask me is, how can I ensure the smooth transfer of my funds to Israel? It is so difficult, they tell me. It is so difficult to transfer money to Israel. They ask me so many questions. The truth is, there are questions being asked today, something which in the past were not asked. However, at the same time, you have to appreciate that whilst the tax authorities, the IRS specifically, requires all banks in Israel to ask these questions. The questions are if you can prepare beforehand a list. In other words, what do we need to know? What do the banks need to know? They need to know two things basically. They need to know the source of the funds, and they need to know that the funds, the monies were taxed at source. Now, can be simply done by a letter from an accountant. An accountant can write a letter which contain the source of funds. He can also, being your accountant, he can add in the fact that he knows that the funds which are being sent over to Israel are taxed. If we receive such a letter, or if we receive an income statement or a 1040 or a P60, then this normally is sufficient in order to transfer the money into your account. Now, one of the subjects I spoke about was how to protect yourself. Was about the strengthening shekel. Now, how do we protect ourselves? What do we do? Well, if let's say today we are in a situation today where we are in the middle of a war, we are hoping Be'ezrat Hashem to see, please God, a different Middle East. We're hoping that soon after the war finishes, there will be agreements with different countries in this area, which could lead to a fact of an increase, more demand for shekels, and we could see a strengthening shekels. And therefore, how can I protect myself? I'm coming with a foreign currency. How can I protect myself from these shekels? Number one is to make sure you have sufficient shekels in your accounts for your needs over the next couple of years. That's one of the way of doing it. The other way of doing it is you can do a forward contract. You can, if you know you have an income coming into your account, and you know it's an income every month, you can actually do a forward contract for that income and protect the value and buy the shekels based on today's values of shekels in the future for future streams of income. Credit cards and debit cards is another subject I like to talk about, because this is somewhere where it is different to what you're used to in abroad. In Israel, there are no such things really as credit cards. Everyone knows a credit card is something which you normally receive, where you have credit on the card, where you can then decide when you're going to pay off that card. A lot of people do it anyway by direct debit, but as a credit card in abroad, you can decide to pay it at a later stage. In Israel, there is no such thing as that type of credit card. The credit cards they offer in Israel are deferred debit cards. What does that mean? It means that if you have the expenses in 1 month, the actual payment will be deferred to the following month, but it will automatically come out of your account. So it's almost like a debit card, but it defers the actual payment until the beginning of next month. So you have an element of credit, but it's not like the credit cards that we are used to. Now, because of that, many banks will ask you when you open an account and ask for a credit card or deferred debit card, they'll ask you to put money aside, because when they offer you a card and they put a facility on the card, they are basically guaranteeing the value of that facility. And therefore, you have to make sure that that's something we're not used to, because it's not credit. The banks are actually they are basically guaranteeing that money. So when you go into a store with your credit card or deferred debit card, I should say, that you have the ability to use it. And it's important to recognize that difference, this difference. The last subject I'd like to speak to, and roughly I've got a couple of minutes still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The last subject I like to touch is the subject of investments in Israel. Now, there's so many different investments that can be done in Israel, whether it's investment in property, whether it's investments in the stock exchange. A lot of people, we've seen the Israeli stock exchange has gone up greatly over the last number of years. You should know as an Oleh Hadash that investments, as I said, investments in foreign stocks and shares, there are no tax taken at source. I'll leave it to my colleagues to discuss what happens if you invest in shekels, because they do when you invest in a shekel investment, when I talk whether it's a deposit or whether it's or whether it's a stock or share, a local stock and share, they may take a tax at source, but this is something that you can get back from the tax authorities. Now, the topic of banking is I'm trying in 10, 12 minutes, which I've been given, to just touch on a number of different topics. I'm here, so happy to set up appointments for anyone, or if they're planning Aliyah, if they want to open accounts because they're looking to buy a property and they need to have an account, please contact me. Rafi will make sure you have my numbers, and I'll be happy to organize you an appointment from an appointment for when you arrive in Israel, and you will know exactly who you're going to, where you're going to, what you need to take with you, and the whole thing will be set up. Because today, if you try to just walk into a bank and open an account, the chances are they probably won't be able to help you. So it's important to have something set up beforehand. We also have, of those of you, the clients here who are from England, we have an extra option there because we have a branch in London, and there are cases when we can open up accounts, sign documents in London for opening accounts in Israel. This is unfortunately only available for our clients in England at the moment. There's a possibility in Los Angeles too, but that's already a smaller possibility. And it's certainly useful today when a situation where many of our clients who've been trying to come to Israel haven't managed to get here. And therefore we're able to, because we have a branch in London, we can actually sign documentation via them. The last thing I'd like to speak about before I finish is there's another way of opening an account, even if you're not living in London and other places, is you can open an account by power of attorney. If you have someone in Israel who can represent you here, you can sign in your country where you're living today on certain documents in front of a notary and an apostille, or in front of the Israeli consulate. Send those documents to Israel, and your attorney can actually come into the bank and open the account on your name. In your name, it's not going to be a trust account; it's an account in your name, which you will be the accountant for, and you can decide at some point in the future to take that person out of the account if you so choose. As I say, I tried in my time allotted to touch many topics, and I'd be happy to elaborate on any of these topics if anyone has questions at the end.
Thank you, Johnny. That was very helpful. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've reached out to Johnny a number of times for clients that have needed help, and he's always been there to help and has the connections. And so we will share his contact information at the end. And I do encourage you to reach out to him if you need help. I also see the questions are coming in, so keep typing them in the Q&A box, and we will get to the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, now we're going to switch to Eitan Gross from TCS Telecom. Hi, Eitan.
Hello, hello, good evening. It's a true honor to be here, especially after my uncle, Johnny Gross from Mizrahi. Um, I agree with everything Rafi said, but from a different point of view as an uncle, as a nephew for me, as an uncle from him to myself. I'll start first of all with a prayer that all our soldiers in the front line will return back safely to their homes, and those victims who got injured yesterday or since the war broke out on October 7th will have full refuat nefesh, refuat aguf. And leaving the importance in the side and going down to a little bit about myself, TCS Telecom is known for many of you from North America, Talk and Save, an English-speaking telecom company based here in Israel. The status of TCS was launched pre-COVID out of the understanding that all of us in modern day use technology, if it's internet, mobile, TV, landlines, and all of these services in Israel are provided by Hebrew-speaking companies. The moment you, as an Ole, or live here and your mother tongue is English, the language barrier at times can be a little bit difficult, especially the cultural difference and the way that the companies operate. The goal of TCS Telecom was number one, to bring English-speaking tech support, customer service, billing, and all of the service tailored to the English-speaking market. We'll go now in depth, but very fast in regards to the products and services that we offer. The fastest growing service currently that over 95% of homes in Israel have is home internet. Home internet currently is offered two technologies. One of them is copper cable, which is referred to as ADSL or coax. And the secondary service, which is the fastest growing and the most reliable one, is fiber optics. Now, when it comes to fiber optics, the biggest advantage of it in comparison to ADSL are the speeds and the fact that the bandwidth itself comes with upload that is significantly faster, and the redundancy of the line is significantly higher than any other technology in the market. So even if it's your streaming TV or you work from home, a lot of Anglos who make Aliyah still keep for the beginning their job from the States or from England or anywhere else around the world. Being connected to fiber optics is the most important thing. Now, one of the things that we as a company developed over the last couple of years is the capability for those who own homes or know where they're going to be renting, is setting up all of their services in advance. So when they make Aliyah, after all the stress of the airport and the luggage and arriving at home, they already have an email where their Wi-Fi password set up from them, and they don't have to start dealing with that bureaucracy. They can immediately connect, they can start surfing on the web, and everything is taken care for them in advance. Rafa, if we can switch to the next, please. Okay, this is a little bit of a map that shows us a little bit in regards to fiber, non-fiber currently in Israel. The beauty of this image that this was taken on Wednesday last week. If we go back to the map as of today, it will already be greener. All companies in Israel, all network companies are constantly putting in additional infrastructure all around the country during war as well, including in military bases and anywhere they could possibly get to besides specific suburbs and villages. Most of the country is covered. You want to go on to the next? Perfect. In regards to mobile plans, I would say the far majority of our clientele usually start off with home internet and cell phone plans. The most important thing in regards to cell phone plans is the fact that if you come from a foreign country and have a number that you've been using your whole life, you can keep that number when you make Aliyah. One of the services that we provide at no additional cost is porting an American, Canadian, South African, Australian, or British number from where you have in the States or anywhere around the world over to your mobile plan here in Israel. So if you have banking in the States or if you have a business in the States and you need to be able to receive phone calls from a business associate in the States, you can still keep your number and add it as an added service onto your local mobile here in Israel. The beauty of this number is number one, that when they dial your US number, for example, but this applies to all countries. If I made Aliyah and I came from Muncie and I had a 646 number and I live now in Israel and I transferred my 646 Verizon number over to TCS, when my family and friends and relatives in the States call me on my 646 that's based now here in Israel, they will not be paying an international fee, because the way to determine the cost of a call is based off of the number that's being dialed and not the location of the number. So your family and friends can continue communicating with you on your same exact number. It comes with one of our plans called Platinum Plan, which means they can reach you here. And if you have business in the other side of the world and you live here in Israel, and it's sometimes you don't want them to know that you're based in Israel, unfortunately, when you dial an outbound call from Israel overseas, your foreign number will be your caller ID. So if I live here, I'm in Gush Etzion in Neve Daniel, and I have business in LA, I can dial them and they will see my 646 number. They will not see my +972 number. In regards to mobile infrastructures, although the world is very advanced in getting to 5G, Israel is a little bit behind in regards to data speeds. I would say that 99.9% of the country already has 4G, which is LTE. With that being said, close to 60% of the country, mostly main cities, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Herzliya, Haifa, etc., they already have 5G speeds. Now, it's not as fast as you would experience in the States, for example, but the speeds are tremendously faster than technologies that appeared here up until a couple of years ago. Rafi? Perfect. One of the most important things when starting the process of Aliyah, although you can open a bank account usually with a foreign number, or you can speak to your financial advisor through WhatsApp. When you start registering to services here in Israel, they will always ask you for a phone number. They send you a 2FA, which is two verification password, and you will have to constantly use the same number. Therefore, some of our services and plans include services outside of Israel. So you can receive incoming text messages at no additional cost. So even if you live here for several months a year and you have to register your number for your utilities, electricity, water, sewer, municipality services, or etc., and they need to send you an inbound SMS so you can confirm that you got the code, When you have a TCS plan, that is included. Besides that, the moment you get an Israeli plan, you also get connection to data, which is not based off of Wi-Fi that you have at home, and it allows you to be connected all around the country. I always recommend people immediately the first time they arrive in Israel to try signing up for a plan. And the moment that you come to TCS and you're saying you're making Aliyah, they usually assign to you what's called a gold number, a better number, not one that all the digits are different. Some of them have repeating digits. It makes it easier to memorize the number and share it with others. Let's move on to the next. As I said before, everything in Israel runs on your phone. The banking, government services, WhatsApp, navigation, deliveries, work and family, all of the apps in Israel are based off of a phone number. You have to register with a phone number. You get a 2FA, which is a password, and then you're able to connect. That number will be used even for your children's programs. When you register them for any day activities, they ask you for that number, and it's vital to make sure that you get an Israeli number. When you make Aliyah, and it's important because I get a lot of questions in regards to WhatsApp, WhatsApp doesn't force you to change your American number. They allow you to choose if you would like to switch your number from the one you had overseas to the one in Israel. If you choose to keep the one you had overseas, every so often, due to the fact that it detects that there's a different SIM card, eSIM, being used in the device, you will need to connect your foreign line again and get a password. If you disconnected your plan in the States or anywhere around the world, you will need to eventually switch your WhatsApp number to the new Israeli number, but it will automatically sync into all the contacts that save your number. So, for example, if I had a 646 WhatsApp number and I switched it over to an 053, it will automatically switch on Rafi's phone to an 053 number without him needing to do a thing. Let's move on. Amazing. As I started off saying in the beginning, the beauty of what we offer now at TCS is keeping your US number or any number you come from. Again, if it's the States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, you can get this both on a SIM card, you can get it on an eSIM plan, you can get it on any technology that moves. The number is automatically connected to your account and belongs to you. Now, if you fly to the States several times a year, and while you're in the States, you buy a prepaid plan, a T-Mobile plan, or Verizon plan, our support team has the capability of forwarding your 646 number to the temporary prepaid line you have in the States so you can continue staying connected even when you travel back to the country you came from. It is very, very important to start the porting process prior to when you come to Israel. And if you arrived in Israel, it's important you don't disconnect your contract in the provider you had in your hometown. The moment you canceled your plan without porting, the chances of getting it connected here in Israel, unfortunately, are very, very minor. And therefore, if you are making Aliyah and you want to keep your number, make sure when you communicate with us at TCS that you express it immediately so that our team and our experts can start the process for you. The porting will not take place until you physically made Aliyah. So you'll never lose connection while overseas, but we don't want you to lose it because you canceled your contract back where you came from. Let's move on to the next, Rafi, please. Perfect. Although TV is slowly decreasing in the market due to streaming services, there are a lot of clientele in Israel that still choose to take the modern TV, if it's cable or streaming. There's two types of technology. When cable is physically via two companies, yes, or hot, it's two infrastructure companies. You get a larger variety of channels that are available. And with streaming, you pay what's considered the low-cost TV services. I would say that all TVs in Israel that you purchase these days do include smart TVs, so you can automatically download Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus, or all of the services that you have in the States. But it is important to mention two things in regards to TV. Number one, if you're physically bringing your TV on your lift when you make Aliyah, you have to make sure that it's physically compatible here in Israel. The electrical voltage is very different between the world, other countries, and Israel. And we've heard many clients, although we don't deal with the hardware, with the actual TV, we deal with the network, the line, and the infrastructure. We heard of a lot of clients of ours who plugged in their TV that they brought from the States and it just fried and it went. So it's important to make sure you check these things. There are converters that allow you to go through that. The other thing is in regards to streaming TV, which is the fastest growing technology currently, the movies and TV shows that will be offered here in Israel are different than other countries. It's based off of your IP. So you should just be aware when you choose a service in Israel to make sure you go through the menu, or if you speak to TCS, to ask what channels are included. If it's BBC, Sky News, Fox News, or any of those, to make sure you express to any company you register, because you want to make sure you receive what you want to watch. As I said, Netflix in Israel, Netflix in the States, for example, are very, very, very different. Let's move on to the next one, please. Beautiful. Home phone in Israel. There are two possibilities that are currently available. One of them is traditional landline, and the other one is internet-based phone, which is considered VoIP. I always recommend taking the traditional line, which is connected via an actual hard wired phone line, which means even if there's an electricity outage, it will still continue working. In case of emergency, it will continue working. Many alarm companies or camera system companies force you to take this type of technology and connect it to your to your home phone or to your cameras. This creates redundancy and makes sure that you're always available. There are traditional landlines for inbound calls only or outbound calls only. You don't have to buy an unlimited package for $40, $50, $60, $70. There are significantly cheaper options currently available, but I always recommend, especially the senior residents, if you have the Yad Sarah button or any of those services, it's vital to have the traditional line. It's usually provided by a company called Bezek, and which means the moment the electricity goes down, your landline does not go down. When electricity goes down, the cell towers have a generator and they usually continue operating. But in case the electricity goes down for hours, also reception can go down. I could say that it hasn't happened in Israel in the last 25 years that cell towers went down. So it's very important to mention that. The other option available is the VoIP line, internet-based phone, which connects via cable to the back of your home router. This is cheaper than a traditional landline. On both plans, you get an Israeli number, and on both plans, similar to the mobile packages, you can also get a US or foreign number added for inbound and outbound calling. So if you don't want to receive for your business calls on your personal cell phone that has a US number and you want to receive it on your landline that's by your desk, you can set up the same way we did with the mobile. We could do it with the landline, that anybody that calls you on your +44 UK number, it will reach you on your landline, and that service is available both on traditional landline and on internet based phone lines. Let me just see. I went over everything. Yes, let's move on to the next one. Amazing. Now, after we spoke about the services that we do offer, many times I get the questions asking, then why choose TCS? I will say the number one main reason for why many clients of ours choose to join TCS is the language. We have over 35 call center operators that provide customer service and tech support around the clock, from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily, where the other competitors of ours close customer service at 4. We keep it going until we close at 11 p.m. And all of our reps are English speaking, native English speaking, who made Aliyah. By us specifically, there's two things to mention. The contract, there's no commitment. You join, you enjoy our service, we're happy. You're unhappy, you want to leave, there is no contract that forces you to stay a client of TCS. Besides that, it's very well known in the Israeli market, the companies price their products in a snowball method, which means the beginning of the mountain, when you join, the price is very low. And as months go by, the price goes up and up. We commit to the same price. When you register to TCS and we tell you a specific cost of 100 shekel, for example, that will be your contract price. In Israel, there are multiple providers, which means a general home will have one provider for cell phone, maybe a different provider for the other cell phones, a third provider for internet, a fourth provider for the landline, and the fifth provider for their TV. The moment a client chooses TCS, he gets it all in one-stop shop company. We work with all the networks in Israel. We're not a broker. We are the actual service provider. In case a customer has a tech support issue, a customer service, logistics, or billing, my team takes care of everything from A to Z. There's no need to communicate with the Israeli companies who speak Hebrew and also provide Israeli style service. By us I'm very happy to share that in the year of 2025, our call center held at 40 seconds waiting time from the moment you chose the relevant department until you got to an operator. So you get a premium service immediately. The setup of the services at times can be a little bit confusing, and therefore we have a team that guides you through all of your services. And for those that already live in Israel, we provide an additional service of canceling your previous services as long as you mentioned it in advance. So if you're currently a customer of HOT, for example, and you switch over to TCS and we connect you to fiber via partner, our back office team will assist you in canceling your HOT services. As long as you send us the relevant documentation, we will run that process for you so you don't have to worry about it. Let's move on to the next one. Amazing. So as I said, English friendly support from A to Z. I always strive, and I'm very happy to share a story here that my grandmother, my uncle's mother, 85-year-old lady, I had a chat with her the other week about TCS, and she shared with me that one of the most incredible things, and I'm very proud of it, is as you get older, many times your family starts helping you out with several things, if it's banking or if it's health or any of the above. And she told me when it came to telecommunication services, thanks to our friendly support, she's able to deal with it by herself. She doesn't communicate with me as her grandson. She doesn't get involved. We are able to connect to every single one of our clients through several channels, phone, WhatsApp, or email, and we're capable of helping and keeping things simple. Telecom is not a complicated thing. As long as you know what you're getting, you know what you're paying, and you're getting what you're paying for, everything works smoothly. As I mentioned before, our company was founded by Olim. Most of the employees, besides myself, are Olim. They come from all around the world, South Africa, Europe, America, UK, Australian. We have a huge project of people who make Aliyah and start working for us. And the last and most important thing is that all the services are in one place, so you don't have to navigate yourself between multiple companies. Let's move on to the next one, please, Rafi. Amazing. On the screen currently, you can all see a QR code in the bottom right-hand side. One of the things we decided to do for any client who comes through Olim Advisors, if you are a TCS client or you're not a TCS client yet and you scan this QR code, you are eligible for the first 30 days of a trial period for free with no commitment. There's no cost. At any given moment within those 30 days, you can cancel the services. For existing clients of ours, this applies to you if you choose to add a service. It doesn't apply to existing items, but if you choose to add a mobile plan or TV or landline or internet, you can scan this QR code. I will stay here for questions at the end. And once again, I want to thank you all for joining, and a huge thank you to Rafi for organizing everything.
My pleasure. Thank you, Eitan. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and we're going to go over to real estate. For those of you who are thinking about buying in a home in Israel, whether it's in the near future, down the road, or like I said before, if you're in Israel already or if you're outside of Israel, we wanted to share with you some information that we think will be helpful as you go through this journey. So the first thing to realize is that prices vary greatly, right? A lot of people have heard of Tel Aviv as being one of the most expensive cities in the world, but there are more affordable communities, and so it's very important to have a budget in mind, and that budget really consists of two numbers. The first number is the down payment, and as Johnny said, foreigners can get up to 50% of the value of the home as a mortgage, and then the other, if you're in Israel, it's up to 75%. So you want to keep in mind how much money you need to put down. And then the second thing is you want to calculate how much it's going to cost you to carry that mortgage, right? And we have a good relationship with the mortgage advisor and we can put you in touch with them. But it really is important because if you can't afford to live in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Netanya, then it doesn't make sense to look there. And so you really want to make sure that you're disciplined. You want to make sure you have a good sense of your finances. You want to make sure that you're not house poor. In other words, putting all your money into property and then you can't afford to live on a monthly basis. So doing the budget is important and take into account closing costs, right? Closing costs, if you're a foreign resident, can be as much as 11, 12%, including the purchase tax, which is 8%, plus the realtor and the lawyer. If you're in Israel already, then it's a lot lower, but you want to make sure that you really are calculating it as closely as possible to help you and to guide you through the real estate process. The next tip, the next idea to keep in mind is what's the intent? What's the purpose of this purchase? Are you looking to buy a home as your residence? Or are you looking to buy it as an investment? Or maybe it's both, right? If you're looking to buy it as a residence, it might be because you live in Israel already and you're downsizing or you want to move to another community, then that's the focus of the purchase, and you really want to, you want to get a sense of what things cost in the different communities that are suitable for you. If you're looking to buy it as an investment and it's purely a financial transaction, that opens up the opportunities. There are a lot of Israeli cities. There are a lot of areas that are going through urban renewal. There are a lot of other cities that you wouldn't necessarily want to live in because you might feel like a fish out of water, but have tremendous upside. There's a lot of parks and infrastructure that's going on. And so as you think through this, you really want to think about what's the purpose, and it could be both, right? It could be that you want to initially buy something and then maybe move into it. So you want to think about it and think through from the intent point of view. The next point is if you don't need to move right away, then you should really look at buying on paper opportunities. Buying on paper simply means that you're buying into a project that either is being built now, maybe the construction hasn't even started yet. There are a few benefits to doing that. First of all, and the biggest benefit is that you're locking in the price. So let's take an example. Let's say there's an apartment that's going for $800,000 right now on paper, right? So you go ahead and you sign the contract and you buy it. But very often in these kind of deals, you only have to put down 20% now. The other 80% you can pay when you get the keys. So sometimes it's a few weeks beforehand or maybe a month beforehand. But in essence, you're locking in the price. And in all likelihood, your property, your apartment is going to appreciate over time and definitely as the building is being built. So you're locking in the price. You don't have to tie up a lot of your capital. And then when the property is ready, you can go ahead and buy it. It also gives you the opportunity to not have to take a mortgage and pay interest on that loan because you're only putting down 20%. And if you do want to take out a loan, you can do it right before you buy the property. The one downside is that there's some developers will charge you a building index. Simply put, it's a form of interest that is added, or sometimes is added to the price of the apartment, and that represents the increasing cost of goods. And so, in the past, it was really a negligible number, but now as inflation has increased and cost of goods has increased, in some cases it can make a big difference. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And in many cases, you can negotiate that so that the price that you're paying includes the building index. The other concern that people have with buying on paper is that there's a concern, right? There's a concern that what happens if you buy and the developer goes bankrupt. So there's a few things to address this concern. First of all, and this is what we do, is you want to work with reputable developers. You want to work with companies that are large companies. Many of the companies you work with are listed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, so they're less likely to go bankrupt. And even more importantly, banks like Mizrahi Bank will back projects. So if in the unlikely event a company goes out of business, the bank will step in and protect the rights of the investment. So there's a lot of upside, very little downside. And we actually have some strategic relationships with a number of developers throughout the country where you can take advantage and you can buy into these types of projects. The other tip I want to share with you is that we're going through a pretty unique time in the real estate market in Israel. Many of you have probably heard that real estate in Israel just keeps on going up and up over time. And that's typically the case. But what we're seeing now, and we've been seeing it for the past few months, is that there has been a softening of the market even before the war started, the Iranian war. For a number of reasons, there's a softening of the market, which means a few things. In some cases, sellers are actually decreasing the prices. I've seen billboards on the highway that say, 100,000 shekel discount, 150,000 shekel discount. So that's something that, you can definitely take advantage of. Another benefit here is that if the developers aren't decreasing the prices, then they're making the terms of the deal much more advantageous to the buyer. It could be a lower down payment. They could include certain things in the deal. We talked about the building index. They might upgrade your kitchen. And so if you're thinking about buying, if you're thinking about getting into the market, my strong recommendation is that you think about doing it in the near future. And I'm not suggesting that you just jump in. This is not an impulse decision. but it is a limited time opportunity. I believe that these conditions won't last much longer. I think maybe another 6 months, 9 months. Of course, it depends on what happens with the war, but I do think that demand will catch up and that you'll see the market again turn towards the seller. So if you're thinking about buying, I would recommend that you take advantage of the market conditions. And the last point is look for what I consider real deals. And we've been looking for these types of deals for over 2 years. And what I mean, these are deals where you can actually get a discount. It's not as if the developer is increasing the price by 10% and then giving you a discount of 10%. That really doesn't do any good. But as I mentioned, there are developers who are looking to sell apartments, they're looking to move apartments, and they're offering discounts, especially in our case where we have the opportunity to negotiate with buyers. With the developers. A lot of the developers that reach out to us want to market their properties to Anglos in Israel and to foreigners, and so we're able to negotiate deals where people who come through Olim Advisors can get prices at friends and family level, so they can be saving 100, 150, 200,000 shekel. They're also getting access to apartments before the apartments are offered to the general public. So just keep in mind, if you're looking to buy, there are these deals, there are opportunities. Reach out to me. So I can guide you through the process. We want to make sure that you find an apartment that meets your needs and is within your budget. Okay. Now we're going to turn it over to Julia from Ibrahim, who's going to talk to you about the job search process in Israel and give you some really great tips. Julia, it's all yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia. I'm a child consultant and represent Ibrahim. And first of all, thank you, Rafi, for inviting us today. I'm very happy to be here. And today I'd like to talk about one of the most important topics for Ibrahim, how to successfully find a job in Israel. Let's move on. At Ibrahim, our mission is to support Alim successfully integrating into the Israel labor market. Every year, we support thousands of highly skilled professionals in building confidence, expanding their network, and navigating the job market successfully. It is important to mention that we are not a recruitment agency. Instead, we provide guidance, tools, and support to help candidates position themselves effectively. This includes career consulting, tools, different help. We help candidates position themselves effectively, and also help candidates repackage their profile to Israeli market. Next slide. Before we talk about job search strategies, it is important to understand how the Israeli job market works. Israel is a small country with a very flat organizational structure, which means communication is often direct and informal. It is also a highly relationship-driven culture. To hire people they know or trust. Another important aspect is there are actually two parallel markets with very different salaries range and expectations, with high-tech and low-tech. So understanding these dynamics is key before starting your job search. Next slide, please. If we look at some key data, Israel has a relatively low unemployment rate and a strong economy. The average salary is around 13,850 shekels per month, but there is a wide gap between industries, especially between high-tech and other sectors. However, for Alim, the challenge is usually not the lack of the job, but access to the right opportunities. Let's move on. Israel is known as a startup nation with a very strong high-tech sector, but at the same time, there are many opportunities in other industries, such as healthcare, energy, logistics, finance, manufacturing, etc. It's important to be realistic and flexible, especially in the beginning. Your first job in Israel might not be your final goal, but it can be an entry point into the market. Next slide, please. Most of the major global and local tech companies are present in Israel, including leading multinational corporations as well as very strong ecosystems of startups and scale-ups. Next slide. On the screen, you can see the locations. and most of them are concentrated in the central region, as well as in Haifa and Jerusalem. So this is also important to consider when choosing where to live. Let's move on. To successfully integrate into the Israeli job market, there are several key things you should focus on. First, research the market. Understand which roles are in demand and how your experience translates locally. Second, networking. This is probably the most important factor in Israel. Many job opportunities are never advertised publicly. And third, Hebrew. It is not always mandatory, but even a basic level can significantly increase your opportunities. Next slide, please. Also, make sure your CV is adapted to the Israeli market. It should be short, clear, and result-oriented. In Israel, HRs expect to quickly understand your value, so focus on achievements, impact, and measurable results rather than long descriptions of responsibilities. If you have a portfolio or relevant projects, make sure to include them. This is especially important for roles in tech, marketing, and design. And finally, be open and flexible, especially at the beginning. Your first role in Israel might not be your final goal, but it can be a very important stepping stone that helps you gain local experience and build your network. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about practical approach you can use. Step one, identify the right people on LinkedIn. It can be hiring managers, team members, HRs. Step two, build a connection first. Reach out with a personalized message. Don't immediately ask for a job. Show interest. Step three, apply strategically. Don't wait for the perfect connection. Applying to relevant roles. And step four, combine both approaches. If you have a contact, ask for a referral. If not, reach out directly to the hiring manager. The key idea is don't rely on just one strategy. Combine both. Let's move on. When it comes to job search, it is important to use multiple channels. LinkedIn is your main tool, not just for applying, but also for networking. You can also use job boards, for example, All Jobs, Receive, Glassdoor, Secret Televis Jobs. And also, I recommend to review company websites because, as I said before, not positions are published on LinkedIn. Next slide, please. Very important thing, you need a system. I recommend creating spreadsheets. Track your applications, companies, roles, contexts, and status. Set a daily goal, for example, 5 relevant applications per day, because job search is not a one-time activity, it is a process. Next slide. And finally, let's talk about very important part of job search, interview. Many candidates don't fail because of lack of experience, but because they cannot clearly communicate their value. It is why preparation is key. Use the STAR method to structure your answer. When you talk about situation, task, action, results, focus especially on results. What impact did you create? Also, research the company before interview and prepare strong questions. Strong candidates don't just answer questions, they tell clear, structured stories. Next slide. And to conclude, I'd like to briefly share how Grain can support you in this journey. Before Aliyah, you can join our Aliyah program, where we help you understand the Israeli job market, build your strategy, repackage your profile, and start preparing in advance through workshops and consultations. We give access to our network platform and also support you provide with consultations. And we have also WhatsApp groups. So you can join our program and start preparing in advance. And let's move on, please. We have another program. After arriving in Israel, you can join our career program, where we provide more hands-on support, including career consultations, CV and interview preparation, mentoring, networking, opportunities, and direct connection with companies. You don't have to go through this process alone. We are here to support you. And please Next slide. You can explore our program using this QR code. To summarize, the Israeli job market is dynamic and full of opportunities, but success requires the right strategy. Be proactive, stay consistent, and use all available resources. And the most important, don't do it alone. We're here to support you, and I invite everyone to join the program. Thank you so much. I will be happy to answer to your questions.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. And I just want to stress a couple of points that Julia alluded to. One is that I heard that about 80% of new jobs come through referrals. And so it's so important to network. And Israel is such a small community that you just need to make that one connection and they will open up the doors. So that's one thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that while most Israeli companies won't hire you before you're in Israel, it doesn't mean that you can't do a lot of the legwork beforehand. So, like Julia mentioned, go onto LinkedIn, start networking, start talking to people. You can get on Zoom calls, just make connections, and you will find that if you do that beforehand, when you get to Israel, your jobs process, the job search process will be a lot more effective, a lot shorter. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And as Julia mentioned, Rahim just has a tremendous amount of resources and really offer support in a number of different ways. So take advantage of the resources and reach out to them. Okay. Now we're going to move on to taxes, and I'd like to hand it over to you, Stephen.
I had to unmute first. I want to say hello to everybody. Want to kind of reflect, on what Eitan said as well. Certainly, wish our well and bracha v'hatzlacha to all the chayalim out there, and certainly our tefillot to everybody, to those in Arad yesterday, and everybody who has been injured over the last few weeks, and really would hope for safety for everybody who has been going through what we have been going through the last few weeks. But it's interesting to note, there was an article I think came out Friday, and this should be very encouraging for all of you who either have recently made Aliyah or contemplating Aliyah. There was an article that came out about the World Happiness Index. And this came out, this is despite everything that has gone through, and certainly not over the last 2 weeks, but over the last, reflecting even everything over the last 2 years, Israel and the people, this is a poll of people who live in Israel, the people in Israel, despite whatever you would think about the anxiety and the pressure, cost of whatever, are the 8th happiest people in the entire world. That's ahead of almost every Western country, including the United States. So that says a lot about not only the resiliency, but really what the quality of life here is and what we really truly feel. I also want to, kind of amplify something that Johnny said, which is we really truly feel that we are very close, not just to the Geula, which is really what we all hope for, but really to that light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, 2 years ago, we talked about the 7 enemies around us and the armies and probably even greater threats. And I think we're probably very, very close to the end. I mean, Hamas is hopefully almost done. Hezbollah, very close to it. I don't have to go through the list. We all know the list, but we could be at a point where it's almost all cleaned out, and many of these other countries around us may be signing agreements with us, and we could be in a unprecedented era, perhaps a golden age, which may be leading to that Geula. I also feel very happy tonight. I feel very comfortable with the rest of this panel. I'm a customer of Eitan's. My mortgage was with Johnny's company, though thank God we made Aliyah over 23 years ago. So it's good to be in that position where I no longer have to be a customer on that end with Johnny's company. I've worked with and known Aaron and Rafi both as friends and working with their customers and clients many, many years. Julia, I would be glad to speak with you and your organization. I'm in a position where we hire people regularly, so we'll have to talk. So, again, very nice to be with this entire group. So I'm Stephen Ettinger. I'm the CEO of Mas America. We're a tax compliance and consulting company. We were founded 14 years ago to do U.S. tax. Starting 3 years ago, we've added a Israeli CPA and an Israeli Yoetz Mas. So that's an Israeli tax advisor, kind of like an enrolled agent in the United States, if you know what they are. I actually, from when I made Aliyah, I'm not going to go into my whole background. I did work with some of the big four here. I became a partner with a US based firm. So I worked remotely. So I know what that's like for a few years. And then I established this company, kind of like a branch of them, a little over 14 years ago. And, I've had many, many years now and about 20,000 returns of people based here in Israel worth of experience. So Rafi asked really to focus in on, rather than just giving general tax advice, the tips that I would give to people if I were, if I were making Aliyah right now, some of the things that I would like to hear would be important for me to hear. So the first thing is, and this is not a commercial for Masamer, for my firm, I really wouldn't care whether you ask somebody, the guy next to you in shul, who they use, or look on the internet and go to find somebody else. Of course, I would prefer that you use us. If you're making Aliyah, you really should use an Israel-based professional for your U.S. tax compliance. And the reason for that is there are many unique U.S. tax rules that are geared to international tax. There are special forms, there are traps, there are treaty issues. There are many things that a US-based accountant, it's not that they're ignorant, it's not that they're well-trained, it's not that they don't know the law, it's just they don't encounter it. They may have hundreds of clients, but they don't have many clients that are based overseas, and they may not have any that are in Israel. I'll give you just one example. I gave a seminar about a year ago, and we had a woman who came up to me afterwards after I talked about this, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I've been using my accountant, and I've been here in Israel." She had actually been in Israel for about 5 years, and she says, "He's been preparing my returns, and I've continued." I'm going to change the state in case maybe she's on the seminar tonight. "I've been paying and continue to be paying my taxes in Illinois for all of these years." And she's been paying about $7,000 a year. So she's paid over $35,000 of tax to the state of Illinois, even though she had moved to Israel, because her accountant didn't realize that, well, she's been doing her taxes and has always been doing her taxes, and there would be no reason not to tax her income in Illinois. Well, that's the point. Don't stay with the guy or gal who's been doing your taxes all these years. You need somebody who's in Israel, even though you might have loyalties, and even though it might be somebody that you, as I said, have a long-term relationship with, but you need somebody who understands the changes, who understands the laws, who understands how to save you money, who understands how to source income, and ultimately it will save you a lot of money. And perhaps more importantly, there are horrific penalties if even sometimes one little piece of paper. I don't want to get into the situation, but there was another preparer in the US didn't file a particular piece of paper, and the client here had a potential $800,000 penalty. Yes, for just one piece of paper. Don't want to get into all. Again, we were able to deal with it. We were able to get the penalty abated, but those are the types of things that can happen. And as I said, I would prefer you, call me when you come here and make Aliyah, but make sure you get an Israeli-based preparer. Okay, secondly, this would apply to older Olim, but really to anybody. You have to realize that, and it's fine. I mean, look, I have a good chunk of assets invested in the United States. I have my 401k there personally. There's nothing wrong with having your assets and having assets in the United States, but you have to understand that there are rules that apply to them that apply certainly after, as we say, after Mea Esrim. Now, some of those are estate, tax rules. And, for most of us, and maybe some, it does apply to some of you, but, right now there's the estate tax exemption is about 15 million, and if you have a husband and wife, it's about 30 million. So there aren't too many of us that are necessarily thinking about estate tax, though there are some individual states that might have an inheritance tax of 1 million or 2. But there is something else that's called a transfer certificate. And what that means is it's a requirement from the Internal Revenue Service that if somebody passes in Israel and they have financial accounts, so let's say you have a 401k in Merrill Lynch, or you have a retirement account in TIAA, a CREFT, or something like that, and unfortunately you pass away, they are not in Israel, okay, they are not going to release that account until there's a request for a certain form that you have to get from the Internal Revenue Service. Now, under the rules, the IRS is supposed to issue that from 6 to 9 months. Unfortunately, that's taking more than 2 years. So there's certain planning, there's certain things that have to be considered. Again, so for those of you who are, as I said, older Olim, where there are significant assets in the United States, you have to start thinking about it. You should be asking about it. And as I said, you should be asking a tax advisor in Israel what can be done in terms of dealing with the transfer of these assets. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with estate taxes. This has nothing to do with paying more tax. What this has to do with is your ability to not get these assets locked up for 2 years or more. Okay, the next slide. Rafi? Okay. The next thing is, and this is a trap that unfortunately, this went hand in hand, unfortunately, with 2 clients that did stay with their US-based preparer, but I've seen it also with one other client here as well. We'll take one of them happened to have been a couple in Teaneck, for example, not picking on people from Teaneck. I have a lot of relatives there. They came to Israel. They decided, okay, we'll rent our house out for a few years, and decided not to sell it right away. And all of a sudden, 3 years went by, and they said, okay, time for us to sell the house. Now, they hadn't then after those 3 years, in the 4th year, they actually came to us as clients. And I said, oh my gosh, didn't anybody tell you that, the house has to be your primary residence in, at least 3 out of the 5, at least 2 of the 5 preceding years, or you're going to lose the $500,000 exemption from capital gain. So again, because either their accountant in the States or the guy who had been doing their returns previously or whatever did not tell them about it, in that case, it cost them, and again, these were high earning people, so they were already in the 20% capital gain bracket, and then the 3.8% Obamacare. So it ended up costing them, I'm not going to do the math in my head, 23.8% of $500,000 cost them a lot of money, as opposed to had they sold the house 6 months earlier. So again, it's just if you are coming to Israel and not selling the house, and this is a date-to-date thing, it's not a year. So, if you're coming January 1st, 2027, make sure that you sell the house before January 1st, 2030. Okay. The next thing is just a pointer. It's not critical, but we find that it's generally not a good idea to file your tax returns with a U.S. address. There are people who like to either, again, if you were somebody who would continue to rent their house, to use that address, or to use their parents' address or their brother's address, because they feel that, okay, if I get some kind of notice, I'll get it fast. And then again, we're just talking about tax returns. We're not talking about your credit card bills or, professional correspondence or anything like that. We're talking about your tax returns. people for some reason feel that, oh, it's better that if I keep the US address. And the reason for this is because it's not so much an issue with the Internal Revenue Service, because they really don't care about that so much. But we've had at least, I'm going to say in the last 2 years, we've had this about 6 times where one of the states, it's been New York 4 times, it was California once, and it was New Jersey once, where they sent out a notice to the person with a nice tax bill, based on the fact of, oh, we saw, because there is what's called information sharing between the IRS and the state. So again, let's say somebody made $1 million, filed the return with a New York address to the IRS. Okay, IRS said, okay, and again, the IRS sends a tape that they don't tell New York, hey, this guy didn't file. New York gets a list, or may have asked for a list of all the people who have filed, returns in New York, and they have computers that just match all the addresses, and they get a list of, the 50,000 where they have a federal return and no New York return. And then all of a sudden, their computer can compute what the tax should be. Well, this person got a letter that they owe, like $110,000. And of course, their eyes bulged out. Now, they lived in Israel for 6 years and hadn't been back to New York. But we had to then, and again, I don't want to get through how we handled it, but we had to deal with some correspondence, and they had to get documentation, and they had to prove that they weren't in New York. And that was all because they used the New York address. So there's just another tip. And finally, and this is one of the biggest issues, it's one that we work a lot with people in terms of planning. It's one where there's a lot of, I don't want to say bad information, but there's a lot of information that people misunderstand. And that's for people who are working remotely. When you're working remotely with US employment, okay, and a lot of the employers, or a lot of times, you prefer to get paid through a US LLC or a S corporation. Now, a lot of people think, or they get the advice that, okay, it's US income being paid into my US company. So number one, you think that, okay, maybe that's part of the 10-year exemption. Well, number one, that's not part of the 10-year exemption, okay? So that's tip number one. If you don't believe me, ask a good Israeli tax accountant and a good US, Israeli tax lawyer. Number two, if you're going to do that, especially now since you're going to be taxed in the US and you're going to be taxed in Israel, you're putting yourself in a really bad situation, because in the US, that's coming, again, whether it's coming through an LLC straight to your return, which means it's going to come on your Schedule C. If that's too technical, since I just have a short period of time and I'm not going to overly explain it, or it's coming through your S corporation, it's going to be self-employment income, which means, again, overly simplifying, you're going to pay 15% like it's Social Security. And then because you're coming over to Israel, that income's going to be coming over to Israel. Okay, you're going to pay bituach le'umi on it. Okay, so then you're going to have a problem of, again, I don't want to get into the rates, but you're going to end up paying a lot. You're going to be paying, we'll call it basically double Social Security on it. So that's already a big problem. And then you're going to have a third problem, which is, since you're sitting in Israel, Israel will say that you're earning the income here, so we get to tax it first. And depending on if and how you have filed your tax return, if you have, let's say, because you were given bad advice and you've been doing this for a couple of years, you've already filed your US tax returns and have already paid the tax to the US, and let's say you've paid 20, 30,000, whatever, of income tax to the US, and now Mas Haknasa comes along and says, oh, you owe us $40,000 or $50,000 of tax. Well, you're going to then have to go back to the US and try to get that refunded and try to prove to the US where the income was from. And then again, I maybe try getting a little complicated and maybe losing some of you. But what I'm saying here is, and maybe that is the point that will all tie together, that when you're working remotely, okay, from Israel, get good advice. Don't make any assumptions. Understand how to structure it properly. Understand what and how you want to run the money through the US, and understand how you want to work through in Israel. And there are options in Israel, and I don't want to run through that all now. That's a little too complicated, but understand that working remotely with US employment is something that you really, not that you need to think about. It's great. I mean, it's great that you have that income, and it's a great model for Aliyah, but understand that you really need that. That is one model, that's one situation where the taxes of both countries really come into play, because you don't have those exemptions. And even though everybody talks about there's no such thing as double taxation, there are aspects of double taxation that really can come and bite you in the tochus. Okay.
Great, Stephen. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Aaron Froelich, who's from Green Peaks Advisors. Aaron, it's up to you.
Okay. I guess I have the privilege of being the last person here
No, there's one more
speaking.
topic after you. We're
Oh,
going to
there
go
is?
into healthcare, so
Well,
you're
I was
second
gonna
to
say
last.
if everybody needs to get an espresso break, they're welcome to it. But anyway, okay, Rafi, you can move forward. But it's a pleasure to really be part of this panel. I really appreciate you, Rafi, for involving me. Okay, just a little bit about myself. I've been here almost 25 years. Most of my background's in wealth management, mainly working with Olim from a variety of jurisdictions. More recently, I opened my own practice as a certified financial planner, offering financial planning services along with wealth management services as a licensed investment advisor. I'm a wealth manager at Equilibrium Wealth, which is a dual licensed investment advisory firm, both with the SEC and also with the Israeli Securities Authority. Yeah, Ralph, you can move forward a little bit. Again, so we offer wealth management services, holistic financial planning, cross-border financial consulting, and retirement planning services. And I would say what we do really well is, number one, it's very high touch. So our client base, we really provide a lot of personal service. It's not just about managing money, for example. It's also really helping you when you make Aliyah, get set up with the right professionals and the right network of professionals around you, whether it's mortgage consultants, bankers, people like Steve, I will go into how important it is to work with a local tax advisor in Israel, and estate planning, etc. It's really about helping you be that, we are the point of contact for you, helping you really understand that you have somebody supporting you in your local native tongue, and also understanding the nuances that comes with making Aliyah and coming from a different country. The approach is highly planning driven. Okay, the clients that we work with, obviously, a lot of them have similar backgrounds, but everyone is very unique, and the process that we go through with them is very, very personal. So those are really the areas where we excel in. Ralph, you can. Okay, we'll skip through. We'll just jump through the. Okay. So actually, Johnny sort of touched upon currency. I'm just going through a few kind of high-level tips. There's really a lot of things to do when it comes to financial planning for Aliyah, and thinking about your goals and your investments and your income. But I'm just going to go through a few just kind of tips that I think are important to think about. When it comes to currency, as we've seen over the last year, even, the shekel strengthened by over 15%. And obviously that has a massive impact on people in the short term. And I think this also really applies to if you're also thinking about buying a property, how to really manage that process, because, a lot of times when you buy a property, it's not just in one fell swoop. There's going to be a payment plan, or you can structure a payment plan. And therefore structure how you want, if you're buying, you're using dollars or using pounds or whatever, wherever country you're coming from, structure it so that you can try and mitigate as much currency risk as you can. What I recommend, and also for clients or for people, Olim, that are making Aliyah and their incomes, whether they're in retirement or nearing retirement, or they are working from, I'll take the US as an example, they're working from the United States, or you have a Social Security check coming in. If your income and you're living off of dollars, I'll use that as an example, it's very important to, I would say, budget conservatively. So it's crazy to think that, taking a 2.75, for example, it's sort of arbitrary, but taking a low rate as your baseline to budget, if you figure that you're able to live off of your income using that rate, then that's a really good way to plan. And obviously, if the rate is higher, then that's great. You have excess margin there. But the idea is to budget conservatively, and you can apply this method, like I said, not just for your month-to-month living, but also for when you're buying a property, for example. It's been mentioned already, but I'm going to talk about it again. You're living in Israel, your expenses are in shekels. That doesn't mean that your wealth can't remain in the local currency that you're coming from. Again, I'm just going to use dollars at the moment. But so your investments are in dollars, your accounts are still in dollars, but make sure to plan to have your shekels, available. We do this all the time with clients that we manage portfolios for. Mostly their money's remaining in dollars for a variety of reasons, but helping them create, a plan for their short-term living in shekels is very important. Tying back into the currency again, shekel emergency fund. Even if you're, always thinking in dollars, your emergencies are going to most likely be in shekels. Okay, so it's important to maintain a reserve amount of shekels in Israel. There are some options in terms of investing that money. Certainly, if you're not American, there are a lot more options. There are a lot more easy options to have that money invested in low risk type of things. Even as a U.S. Taxpayer, there are a variety of options, whether it's buying a government bond or bank deposits or using a loan portfolio, that kind of thing, which are kosher and easier to use, to invest in. I still think it's very, very important to have that emergency fund in shekels. Roth, you can. Okay, so this sort of ties back into what Steve was talking about. There's no question in my mind, one of the first people, besides working with a financial advisor, the next professional that you need to start working with is a local CPA, depending on your situation. Now, even more so, basically they've changed the reporting requirements. That it used to be that you didn't have to report your global investments and assets, etc., under the 10-year exemption. Now that you actually do still need to report that for more transparency purposes. So I'd say even more so, it's important to get set up with both an Israeli CPA that I would recommend is at least an English speaker or somebody that understands international tax as well. If I go back to the U.S. side, so someone who's also familiar with U.S. taxation or works closely with a U.S. CPA, and obviously a U.S. CPA as well. I would say that it comes up a lot with clients that I work with, that I manage money for, especially when it comes to retirement accounts. How are retirement accounts, for example, U.S. retirement accounts treated in Israel? There are a number of gray areas when it comes to the tax treaty, and we take the approach that we work with your CPA that you work with in terms of staying in sync with what their approach is to those types of things. But so it's very important, to have everybody kind of working together to make sure that you're working in a most efficient way. Steve talked about, what income is taxable and where, right? If you're working from, you're still in Israel and you're working abroad, you still have an Israeli tax status, for example. I work with a lot of clients that are kind of set up in both places with different companies, or working as independent contractors, or working through Israeli payroll companies. If there are also there's the Israeli end, right, which I help clients with. You have obligations in Israel, not just on tax, but also could be putting in money into an Israeli pension fund, for example, and trying to navigate those things is very important. It's not necessarily complicated, but you want to make sure that you're compliant. Deciding on how much to contribute is also an exercise that needs to be done. Depending on where you are in life, if you're, for example, making Aliyah younger and you're planning on working here, certainly understanding how the Israeli pensions is very important, and what they offer you, not just in terms of long-term retirement savings, but also in terms of insurance and risk management. I'm not going to get into the details right now in this, but I'm just giving you an idea that the system in Israel is different than the system in the United States or the system in the UK or wherever. So it's very important to, and I do a lot of this with clients where I really help them explain really the details and help them optimize. For example, a client that making Aliyah from the United States, he or she might have, this comes up quite often, term life insurance in the US, and want to know, should I maintain those policies, or should I get private, policies in Israel? Now, again, I'm not an agent, and I don't want to be an agent. I'm an objective person here, but I look at everything holistically, and I can help clients understand how the system works in Israel in terms of, insurance. A lot of people aren't aware that, for example, in an Israeli pension, you actually, a Karen Pensia offers life insurance, okay, is built into the product, okay? And you can also click that off, for example, if you already have life insurance in the United States. Maybe you don't need that life insurance here, and therefore you don't have to pay the premiums. So there are a lot of things to think about that are definitely not explained to you when you step foot in this country. So I kind of went off topic a little bit there, and I would say lastly, don't think that you can just mimic your investment strategy that you've had up until now. So for example, if you were buying mutual funds in the United States and you make Aliyah and you say, okay, I'm going to buy some mutual funds in Israel, and you're a U.S. taxpayer, there are all sorts of things that you should look into first before. And I highly recommend, getting advice from someone like, myself, and a financial advisor, a licensed investment advisor, for sure. One of the things that, I think it kind of also ties into working with people that are local. Steve was talking about U.S. addresses and working with them and how they can be problematic. I've seen over the last, I'd say, 10 to 15 years, and I'm talking specifically in the United States, more and more financial advisors that you might have had, a 30-year relationship with and you trust. Basically, once you make Aliyah and you become a resident of Israel, they have to show you the door from a compliance perspective. And it's sad because you want to work with that same advisor because you trust them and you've been working with them. But there are also, professionals in Israel that can also provide that same level of service or beyond, really, and also give you that other additional added value of helping you on the Israeli end and really helping you, make your Aliyah, very, very, very positive. So if, I had a client just recently also, like, they put everything, they want to maintain the same advisor, or they want to maintain the same, professionals that they have in the US, and they used their mother's address as their US address, and their mother is 95 and she has health problems, right? And then you don't want to be stuck in a position where, suddenly you're not able to have access to your funds, or you're not able to speak to the financial advisor because for compliance purposes. And, so I would say, take some time before you make Aliyah, or if you already made Aliyah, to think about, how you want to plan your investment portfolio, who you want helping you with that, or whether or not you want to do it on your own, but learning really how the system works. I would say that, again, just going back on the investment end, it is, I think, worthwhile considering where the currency is, and that, short-term volatility that we see. We don't know if the shekel is going to go, keep on strengthening or not. And I would say for people making Aliyah, it is important to consider having some shekel investments. Okay, how to do that's already a more specific topic and question. But I would definitely think about that. Even though you may have a 10-year tax holiday, and that's very important, sometimes, and I really find this also with a lot of other, it can be applied to a number of different things. Tax is very important, okay, but I don't believe it should always be the only driving decision when it comes to investments. Okay, so it could be somebody who has a lot of stocks in a company, and whether or not, and I would advise them to diversify, even if it means paying more tax now, right? So the same kind of thing applies here when it comes to you have a 10-year tax holiday, and it's important to take advantage of it. But sometimes it's also important to look at the bigger picture as well. And lastly, in terms of risk management, it's a really big topic. I'm not going to really go into too much about it, but I would advise working with a good insurance agent or working through a financial advisor like myself, who can help you understand all the different types of risks to mitigate, and what's the best way to mitigate those risks, and try and work with somebody who's objective and who's not just selling you a product, but who's there to really help guide you and help you optimize your risk management. So if it's life insurance, private health insurance, which is extremely important to have, I would say that's important to have from day one. If you can apply for that supplemental health insurance, which is something that goes beyond what you would get from a Kupat Cholim, which can help mitigate very significant financial risks, which is why it's important as a financial planner to get a policy that fits what you need. And sometimes, by the way, I think when it comes to health insurance in general, people, the different levels within the Kupat Cholim, as Olim, we'd like to spend the most and think we're getting the most from the highest level. And a lot of times that highest level isn't necessarily what you need. And you can actually save more money on a monthly basis by going a tier down and using that money, allocating that to other risk management that is, I think, more effective. And with that, I'll end the presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to have the last topic, which is healthcare, and then we're going to switch over to the questions. I see there's a lot of good questions here, so I'm going to take a few minutes and just cover the healthcare topic, and then we will take questions. So first and foremost, just to give everyone an overview of the healthcare system here in Israel, it's universal healthcare, which means everybody by law is entitled to get healthcare. Okay, if you're making Aliyah from the moment you set foot in Israel, when you land in Ben Gurion, you're going to get healthcare coverage. You can get the basic healthcare coverage. Now, there are 4 Kupat Cholim or 4 HMOs in Israel. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. What's important to know is that they're all regulated by the government and they all provide similar services, right? The costs that they charge for going to doctor, the co-pays for doctor visits, for medication are very similar. And we'll talk about in a moment, then how do you choose the right Kupat Cholim? But just know that there are 4 options and they're all very similar. Another important thing is to know, and Aaron talked about it, is, from a financial point of view, it's socialized medicine, it's, low cost healthcare. And so if you're working for a company, it's very often just taken out of your paycheck. The company contributes to it. I think it's about 170 shekel or so on a monthly basis that you might be paying out of pocket. And so it's the cost is very low and you're getting excellent healthcare. I'm sure those of you who live in Israel would agree that the quality of healthcare is excellent. You might have to wait, and it might be a little aggravating, sometimes a little bit of bureaucracy to get through and red tape to get through. But at the end of the day, you are getting excellent care. And I think for people that are coming or people that are thinking about making Aliyah, and if healthcare is a concern, I just want to put your mind at ease and let you know that there are some excellent choices here. The standard healthcare basket, or the Sal Briut, covers your doctor visits, hospital care, medication, mental health, dental. So a lot of the basic healthcare needs are covered under the healthcare basket. And the way that it typically works is that the different the different Kupat Cholim do offer different tiers. So as Aaron mentioned, you can in essence get supplemental insurance, Typically, it doesn't cost that much. It might cost an extra $50 or $60 per month to get the higher level of coverage. And there are a number of benefits that you get by paying out of pocket for the supplemental health insurance. And I'll talk about it in a moment. And just know in terms of the way that the healthcare system works here, the center of it is your family doctor, the healthcare provider, your family healthcare provider. Very often you need to go to them to get referrals for a specialist. So just keep in mind that the role here of the family doctor is different from the role in the States and other countries. And so it's very important that you choose the right family doctor, because it's not just about the care that they will provide you, but also they, in essence, are the portal or the connection to other doctors that you might want to see. I've put together just a few tips just to keep in mind. We talked about choosing the right Kupat Cholim, and the differences are small, but what really matters is finding the Kupat Cholim that offers the most clinics, doctors who speak your language. So if English is your mother tongue, or if it's a different language, you want to really make sure that you have enough options of doctors, specialists who speak your language. The other thing is, if you are seeing a specialist, if you do need to see a specialist, a lot of the specialists aren't enrolled with all the Kupat Cholim. So you want to, in this case, find out which Kupat Cholim the specialist belongs to, and then strongly consider joining that one. Do keep in mind that you can switch. You can switch, I think it's 4 times a year. So it's not like you're locked in forever, but it is something that you do want to spend the time, talk to people, get a sense of which Kupat Cholim is more popular in your neighborhood, and that's probably the one that you want to go with. As we talked about, finding a good family doctor really opens up the door and can help you streamline the process and a lot of the red tape. So keep that in mind when you're looking for a family doctor. One of the things that I think people are surprised by, and one of the sources of frustration, is the wait time. If you need to get an MRI, an ultrasound, and you need to go through your Kupat Cholim, it could literally take weeks and months for you to get that appointment. So there's a few things to keep in mind. First of all, plan ahead. If you know that you need an MRI in 6 months from now, don't wait. Reach out to your Kupat Cholim and make an appointment now so that you can so you can get that care when you need it. The other thing to keep in mind is there are other options. For example, Telecom, which is a network of urgent care. You could just walk in and then get access to urgent care. It might be an X-ray, it might be an ultrasound. So there are options. There are other kind of hybrid options where you could pay out of pocket to, in essence, see a specialist sooner than later. So if you're willing to pay a few hundred shekel, there are different hospitals, different organizations where you can pay more out of pocket to see somebody sooner. Another thing we talked about is supplemental insurance. My recommendation is to strongly consider enrolling in the supplemental insurance. It's relatively inexpensive. It gives you access to better services. It gives you access to, in essence, out-of-network doctors, and it can shorten the wait time. So that's something that you can look at. And each one of the Kupat Cholim have their own programs. So you can contact the Kupat Cholim and find out what supplemental insurance they offer. There is also an option to enroll in private insurance. One thing to keep in mind is a lot of these companies will not insure if you have pre-existing conditions. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you do need surgery, if you want to fly back to the US, UK, Australia, wherever you're from, then private insurance might be a good option. If you want to get second opinions, that's when private insurance can help as well, and also faster access to specialists. The last thing to keep in mind is be proactive and be an advocate for yourself. I'm sure many of you have heard the story that a no doesn't mean no, a no means maybe, and a maybe means yes. And that's just the reality of life in Israel. For those of you who live in Israel, I'm sure you've experienced it. When you talk to somebody, if you call your Kupat Cholim and they say no, try to speak to somebody else. Keep knocking on doors, keep talking to people. Don't just accept that first no as the final answer. It's very important to push, do it in a professional way, to ask questions. But I think what you'll find is very often when you do that, you'll find solutions to problems, doors will open up, and you will get the care that you need. So overall, this as conclusion, the care here is excellent. It is different from other systems throughout the world, so you need to be aware of that. You need to plan for that. But for those of you who are worried about this, or for those of you who really want to make sure that you understand how this functions before you make Aliyah, hopefully this has helped. And of course, if you have more specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay, I want to just end by we talked about a lot of resources. There's a number of resources that we offer at Olim Advisors. A lot of the individuals here on the panel offer resources as well. Feel free to reach out to us. We have tips about Aliyah in real estate. We have a great Facebook group. We have WhatsApp groups. There's 4 WhatsApp groups for the different Kupat Cholim. So there's a lot of different resources, of course, discounts and projects. We have a WhatsApp for real estate deals and discounts. So reach out to the panel. Here's our contact information. Again, I'm going to send out a recording. I'll send out an email to everyone who registered with everyone's contact information and with the recording so that you can go through and you can watch it again. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing and we're going to take some of the questions that we have here. Okay, so there's a question here, Johnny, for you about opening up an Israeli bank account in the US. So you talked a little bit about it, and I know you talked about the UK being able to do it. Can you just talk about, kind of briefly, are people who are in the US, are they able to open a bank account? What does it mean? What's the difference in a foreign bank account and Israeli bank account? If you can talk about that for a moment, that'd be great.
Okay, okay, I related to that in my talk, and I'll just refer to it again. Americans can open accounts, but they can't actually open and sign documents in America. They can, well, they can if they go to the Israeli consulate and sign on all documents on the Israeli consulate. But that service has become a little bit more difficult to receive because at the moment the Israeli embassies are not. What they can do instead is they can open up accounts, can sign on a number of different documents, with the documents being the Declaration of Beneficiaries, the W-9, W-9, the tax residency document, and the power of attorney documents. They would sign those documents in front of a notary and an apostille, then send those documents to Israel to either myself or to the power of attorney, and the power of attorney can come with those documents into the bank and open the account. That is today the way that you can open an account, but without actually being here. But it would require them to go and sign documents in front of a notary and an apostille. I have actually a number of offline. If they want to approach me offline, I can give them names of notaries who can actually give them this type of service.
Okay, great.
Okay, the other thing you mentioned was the foreign account is the foreign, if it's a foreign resident account, if he's still living in America. Obviously, if he's an Oleh Chadash, the account will be a new immigrant account. But he can open either of those. I mean, they're just 2 different types of accounts. And as I said in my talk, those 2 accounts are both multi-purpose, multi-currency, so they can do everything in those accounts.
Okay, great, excellent. Ethan, a question for you about using VPNs to watch US based TV. Can you talk about how that works here?
Yes, I would say in advance, all companies, not most, do not offer that type of service. There's some regulations to do with that type of service in Israel, and therefore we are provided from doing that. I'm sure that if you search a little bit on the internet, there are some solutions out there. Would I recommend them? I wouldn't, but I do understand where the need comes from. Currently, there isn't any solution that I can offer or any other network provider can offer here in Israel. In regards to the second question, in the US, virtually no one has a landline anymore. I would say that it's the same case in Israel as well. Most people don't have. However, those that do have, usually it's when they have young children at home, or perhaps they have an alarm system or camera system that requires you to get that type of service. Most people these days of course, use cell phone services, and therefore landlines are going out more and more of technology. But when it comes to landline cameras and emergency lines, you still have to use traditional landlines.
Okay, great. Thank you. Stephen, there's a question here about military pensions and Social Security and whether or not they're taxable in Israel. Can you talk about that, please?
Okay, one of the things I was talking about was the treaty. So one of the best benefits that Olim from the United States have is the fact that Social Security benefits are not taxable. So they're not taxable in the United States and they're not taxable in Israel. So it's basically, so, let's take, husband and wife, let's say together, they're getting $6, $7, $8,000 a month in Social Security. That's complete tax-free money. Yeah, so in all scenarios, and that, as I said, that's an express treaty provision. Now that doesn't apply if now we do have people that may have made Aliyah, but they're going back to the U.S. 6 months a year. I mean, you have to be a tax resident in Israel. I'm not going to go through all the definitions, but if you've made Aliyah, you're resident in Israel, you get a tax exemption on the Social Security. Now, in terms of a military pension, again, I want to look into it. If it's a pension that is coming from, let's say, from the Israeli government to an American citizen, not taxable in the United States. If it was coming to an Israeli citizen from the United States under the treaty, it would not be taxable. But so we're getting a little bit fancy there. But it would be taxable in the other country, meaning if an American was getting an Israeli pension, Israel, I don't know what the Israeli laws were. Israel could theoretically tax it. The United States would not tax it. Similarly, if an Israeli citizen was getting a U.S. pension, okay, similarly, a U.S. citizen would be taxed on it, but Israel wouldn't be taxing it.
Okay.
Again, those are express treaty positions.
Thank you.
Provisions.
Sorry, Julia, there's a question about just how long it takes to find a job. Just from your experience, if somebody makes Aliyah, approximately how long can they expect it would take for them to find a job?
I think around from 6 to 9 months.
Okay, so then somebody needs to, and Aaron, that goes to what you're saying in terms of a budget. You need to make sure that if it's going to take you 6 to 9 months, you want to make sure that you have the cushion so that you can afford to kind of wait it out and not get into a situation where you're running out of cash to pay your monthly expenses.
Yes, that's
Okay.
all.
There's a question here about Olim Advisors and whether or not we vet the developers. And so that's what I was alluding to beforehand. We are very careful in who we work with, not just with developers, but just with companies in general. The individuals here on the panel, we carefully decided to work with each company and each person. We want to make sure that not only are they honest, but also they understand the mindset of people who are making Aliyah and Anglos. And so absolutely, when it comes to real estate and developers, we're very selective, and when it comes to our network of companies, we're also very selective in who we work with because we know that people really need to be taken care of. It's a different culture, different way of doing business, and we want to make sure that we try and ease the transition and help them adjust. There's a question here about supplemental insurance and whether or not you still need doctor referrals. It depends. Some cases you can bypass that. In some cases, you still need to go through the primary care doctor. The best thing is to talk to an insurance broker who can go through and explain to you the benefits, or reaching out to the Kupat Cholim directly.
Usually, from my experience, you do need a hafna. You do need a referral. That's typically.
Okay. Okay, great. A question for you, just Aaron, just briefly, because we have a couple minutes, but just, kind of rule of thumb, do you feel that from your experience, do people who make Aliyah tend to liquidate their assets before they come to Israel, or do many of them keep their assets in America for a while? What's your experience?
No, the experience is really that they leave their assets there. Number one, if we're talking about U.S. taxpayers, just in terms of investment options in Israel tend to be more limited, right? So in many instances, I would advise them anyway to be investing in U.S. funds or and that kind of thing. So it's usually advisable to maintain your U.S. based brokerage. And I do that a lot with clients where I onboard them even prior to Aliyah. That's why working in a firm that's also dual licensed with the SEC and in Israel is helpful. So it's a very seamless kind of transition. So, where they basically come here and everything is set up for them. But yeah, so I would, and also because of the 10-year tax holiday, it lends between the 10-year tax holiday and also the type of account. So if you have a big portfolio that's or a lot of your assets are sitting in retirement accounts in the U.S., those really aren't so transferable to Israel, or it's very complicated to do that type of thing. So the answer is most people who have most of their assets in the United States will maintain I would recommend maintaining them there.
Rafi,
Um,
yeah. I'm also going to jump in there. There would be two other reasons for them typically to leave the assets there and not liquidate them. First of all, if they're going to liquidate the assets, which would mean selling them off, they're going to trigger taxable gain. So they're not going to want to do that. Generally, they're not going to want to do that. Meaning, let's say they have a stocks portfolio or funds or whatnot, and they're going to sell them. Well, selling them is going to trigger gain, and they're going to have to pay taxes on that. So that's number one. Secondly, especially for Americans, I can't talk about other countries. Most of those investments have, very fixed, understandable tax consequences. There are a lot of types of foreign investments that have under the US tax laws, unfavorable tax treatment. Okay, meaning, whereas let's say you make a certain type of US investment and you sell it, you might have capital gains of 15%. That same type of foreign investment, you might end up paying 55% tax on it. I don't want to explain why, it's too complicated, but it's generally better for Americans to, especially on their US-based investments, to keep them in the US. Now, again, I don't want to get into shekel type investments. Again, Aaron can certainly help people navigate and tell them the right types of things to invest in. You certainly should be leveraged, especially if you're going to be living here. But generally, it's not a good idea to liquidate and bring over those investments from the U.S.
Okay.
I will say that I have a client that's been in Israel for 30 years, is a U.S. taxpayer, and so the 10-year holiday is not applicable. And he really wanted his portfolio in Israel for a variety of reasons. All his family's here, his wife is here, and he just wanted everything beheseg yad, as they say, nearby. And we were able. And John, his portfolio is in Mizrahi, I set him up with premium Mizrahi account. And we were able to move his taxable account, as is, so to speak. Meaning this was a client that doesn't have a big retirement accounts, and he received an inheritance. And that happens a lot. People get inheritances.
Right.
And by the way, just as a tip in terms of inheritance, you're living in Israel, you get an inheritance, $1 million, $2 million, and that financial institution doesn't want to play ball with you anymore because you're not a resident. And I'm able to help clients open accounts using their Israeli address. And it's a very, very unique thing that we're able to do.
Okay.
But so back to that original point, we were able to move his portfolio over as is, did not trigger any tax. And he had what he wanted. He has his portfolio in Mizrahi, invested in also shekel investments that are appropriate for him, and
Right.
global portfolio.
Okay, great. All right, everybody. I see that we've reached our limit here. I just want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your wisdom. For those of you who joined our webinar, I really want to encourage you to reach out to us. Let us help you. And if you're thinking about making Aliyah or thinking about buying a home, we want to encourage you to go through that plan, to realize your dreams, and most importantly, as a number of you said, just keep praying for us. I think we all need to pray. We all need to pray for our soldiers, for the wounded, for the injured. Bezrat Hashem, things will calm down soon, and that we will be able to go back to our normal routine. So thank you, everyone. Shavua Tov. Be well. Take care.
Kasha v'sameach too.
Shavua tov, Shavua tov. Thank you, Rafi. Thank
Shavua
you.
Tov. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.